Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and I hope that everybody's having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be talking about useful idiots. So this bro right here, his name is Malcolm Caldwell, and I'm pretty sure you guys are unaware of who he is, but he's a good definition of a useful idiot. So I'm gonna kind of guide you guys and kind of get into like a detailed information about who he is. So his name is Michael Caldwell, James Alexander Michael Caldwell. He was born September 27th, 1931, and he died December 23rd, 1978. He was a British academic and prolific Marxist writer. He was a consistent critic of American foreign policy, a campaigner for Asian communist and socialist movement, and a supporter of the Khmer Rouge, or the Khmer Rouge. Caldwell was murdered under mysterious circumstances a few hours after meeting Pol Pot in Cambodia. And you guys can see that he was born in Scotland. He was son of an architect. He blah blah blah, and he was basically a Marxist. The reason why I wanted to talk about Caldwell is the fact that, in my personal opinion, I believe that Marxists are just they go and slaughter each other anyways. Useful idiots. And if you don't know who Yuri Bezmenov is, he talks about this, about people like Malcolm, who are just champions for these dictators only to be one of their victims. And this happened under the USSR. This happened in North Korea. This happens in Cuba. It's just a kind of like a pattern among these fucking Marxists, okay? So anyways, Yuri Bezmenov, he said, the useful idiots, the leftists who are idealistically believing in the beauty of the Soviet socialists or communists or whatever system when they get disillusioned. They become the worst enemies. That's why my KGB instructor specifically made the point, never bother with leftists. Forget about the political prostitutes. Aim higher. They serve a purpose only at the stage of destabilization of a nation. For example, you're leftists in the United States. All these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instruments in the process of the subversion only to destabilize a nation. When the job is completed, they are not needed anymore. They know too much. Some of them, when they get disillusioned, when they see the Marxist-Leninists come to power, obviously they get offended. They think they will come to power. They will that will never happen again. Of course, they will be lined up against the wall and shot. And that's pretty much what happened with Malcolm. So he was shot dead. Here he is with Pol Pot as well, right there. And there he is, right there. I think that is journalist Elizabeth Becker. I think so. That's who she is. I don't have to. I can look it up right now. Hold on just a second. You guys gonna see me. Elizabeth Becker. She has a she has a, I think she's in Washington. Yeah, it's American Arthur Jersey. But she, I believe that's who she is. Elizabeth Becker Pol Pot. Let me see. Okay. Yeah, I think that's who she is. She did go, and I believe that looks like the tribunal. It's American author and journalist who covered national and international affairs as New York Times correspondent and was a member of the staff that won the blah, blah, blah. Okay, yeah, that's her. In December 1978, Becker was a member with Malcolm Caldwell and Richard Dunman. I believe that's this bro. Invited to visit Cambodia since the Khmer Rouge has taken power in April 1975. The three visitors were given a highly structured tour of the country. We travel in a bubble, wrote Becker. No one was allowed to speak to me freely. So yes, that's who she is. So, anyways, there he is. There's Elizabeth. There's Pol Pot, and there's Malcolm. And of course, there's nobody really know what happened, but I wanted to read this article. Who killed Malcolm Caldwell? December 23rd, 1978. So Malcolm Caldwell, left-wing activist and supporter of the revolutionary movement everywhere, was murdered in Phenom Penn on December 28th, 1978. To this day, nobody knows who did it or why. Yeah, I was right. That's Elizabeth Becker right there. Anyways, he was a prize idiot when it came to politics, but he was also a very decent human being. So Malcolm Caldwell was born in Scotland, the son of a coal miner. He obtained degrees from University of Nottingham and University of Edinburgh. He completed 2 years national service in the British Army, becoming a sergeant in the Army Education Corps. In 1959, he joined the School of Oriental and African Studies at the University of London as a research fellow. Although he met with a conservative opposition with the school, he remained on its faculty throughout his life. As well as being an academic, he was an energetic and committed radical political activist. Oh my goodness, it's always these universities that consist of these activists. He was dedicated to criticizing Western foreign policy, of course, and capitalist economics, of course, paying particular attention to American policy. He was a founding editor of the Journal of Contemporary Asia, a journal concerned with revolutionary movements in Asia. In late 1978, Pol Pot, Cambodia was in trouble. The Vietnamese were on the point of invading, provoked, it must be said, by repeated and very bloody border incursions by the Khmer Rouge. And Phenom Penn, was virtually alone in the world. What to do? Apparently, the Khmer Rouge leader decided to invite some friendly Westerners to visit, and through them asked the Americans to make common cause with Phnom Penh against the evil Vietnamese. Yes, it sounds crazy, but read on. The invitees were Caldwell and two journalists, Elizabeth Becker and Richard Dunman. Caldwell was already a friend of the Khmer Rouge without being asked. A month earlier, he'd written a piece in the Guardian, rubbishing rumors of the Cambodian genocide. Not only had the Khmer Rouge not killed anyone, but if they had it, it was only Ark Quisling, who well knew what their fate would be were they lingered in Kampuchea. Yes, I said he was a decent human man, but I meant in his private life. People who met Caldwell generally liked him. Still a dick. He a lot of these fucking Marxists, they deny the Cambodian genocide in the beginning, but now all the information is coming out, and a majority of the Marxists that you see are dead. They died, so they don't really necessarily have that opinion anymore. So, but continue on. Becker and Dunman were more clear-eyed. Becker wrote a book, When the War Was Over, in which she talks about 2 weeks they spent in Cambodia as guests of the Khmer Rouge. She described the situation as house arrest with guided tours. Ooh, that sounds familiar, like North Korea. Phnom Penh as Pompeii without ash, an absence of people and a sense of fear. She also describes the group interview with Pol Pot, I don't know why I said it like that. Sorry. Requested earlier, but granted only on the last full day. There was, in fact, 2 interviews, one for Becker and Dunman, and a separate one for Caldwell. Note, most of the online sources seem to assume that Caldwell was included with Becker and Dunman in the first interview, but in Becker's book, she says, we granted an interview together, which I take that to mean herself and Dunman, and Caldwell's a separate one. And I got the information too when I read about it. I read that he was included in the trio, but I guess not. The Becker-Dundon interview turned out to be more of a royal audience. After some photos, they were seated at a respectful distance with their translator while Pol Pot filled them in. Vietnam, he said, intended to invade Cambodia. This is when Pol Pot started to become really paranoid. It would be aided by the Warsaw Pact. The invasion would not stop at Cambodia's border. Russian tanks would roll on to Bangkok and Singapore. NATO and ASEAN must not stand by. World peace was in the balance. You may go now. Caldwell came back delighted from his own interview slightly later. He and the Khmer Rouge leader had discussed economic theory, and Pol Pot had invited him back next year. All three agreed the trip to Cambodia has been worth it. That night, Becker was asleep by 11 p.m. A few hours later, she was awakened by what she took to be dogs knocking over trash cans. Then she heard gunfire. Leaping out of her bed and pulling on some clothes, she went out to the dining room, where she found herself confronting a young man, Khmer, a frightened-looking, pointing pistol at her, yelling, "Don't shoot." She jumped back into the bedroom and ran and hid in the bathroom. From what she heard, footsteps running upstairs. Dudman and Caldwell's rooms were upstairs, then shots, then footsteps running back down, and then for the next hour and a half, silence. Then sounds, an enormous thud, a crash, broken glass, footsteps in the living room, footsteps going up the stairs, something heavy carried down, then up again. Then footsteps in her bedroom, the bathroom door opening slowly. One of the staff, "Don't move," he said, and went out again. 45 minutes later, their official Minder arrived. He told her Dunman was fine, Caldwell was dead. She and Dunman were taken to see Caldwell's body. He was lying on the floor in his pajamas. Blood on his chest. In the doorway was the body of a boy who looked like the young man Becker had seen earlier. Becker and Dunman were taken to another house not far away from where they were questioned about what had happened. Dunman reported that he had woke up to gunshot at 12:55 a.m. From his window, he saw a file of a half of a dozen men running down the street, scattering between the houses. Going to a balcony off the hall, he saw more men running. He knocked on Caldwell's door and exchanged a few words with him. A man with a gun appeared at the corridor and fired a shot to the floor. Dudman jumped into his room and shut the door, and the man fired 2 shots through the door. Dudman thought he heard more shots, but couldn't be sure. They asked the Minder what happened. He said the attackers were still at large. Apart from 2 who had been captured and those 6 who had been killed, Dudman and Becker saw only 1 dead attacker. He also said there had been 3 armed guards at the guest house. Next morning, there was a small service for Caldwell at the guest house, and Becker and Dudman departed with a coffin for Beijing. So what happened? The Khmer Rouge blame it in Vietnamese plot. Of course, the Khmer Rouge blame everything on the fucking Vietnamese. Rather a plot by Vietnamese sympathizers within the top circles of the Khmer Rouge. The 2 captured assassins, 2 guards from the guest house, it seems, made full confession before their deaths. According to them, only Caldwell was targeted, and the aim was to embarrass the leadership. The journalist was to be left alive to report the event to the world. Becker, I wonder why they targeted him in the first place. So what happened? Becker accepts this and thinks the aim may have been to discredit Ling Seri. Ling Seri is one of the top members of the Khmer Rouge, by the way. The Khmer foreign minister and the driving force behind the opening to the west, which was real enough if bizarre. In fact, the Vietnamese had already crossed the border in force on December 25th and would arrive in Phenom Penn on January 7th. An article by Andrew Anthony in The Guardian from 2010 gives more details. He tells how the journalist Wilfred Burchett claimed to have seen a Cambodian report not long after Caldwell's death, stating that he was murdered by members of the National Security Force personnel on the instructions of Pol Pot government. But scholar David Chandler reports missing the translator of the meeting between Caldwell and Pol Pot, who remember a very pleasant exchange conducted in a spirit of enthusiastic agreement. So this is I should read the this right here, Lost in Cambodia. I'm gonna try to so you guys can check this out, where it kind of broke everything down for you guys, more information about what happened. But anyways, back to the article. Okay, not perhaps that this gives any insight into the state of Pol Pot's attitude to Caldwell. Pol Pot, even when he was very angry, you can never tell, said Ling Seri years later. His face His face was always smooth. He never used bad language. You cannot tell from his face what he was feeling. Many people misunderstood that. He would smile, his unruffled smile, and they would be taken away and executed. Or as Comrade Duck, the born-again serial believer. If you guys don't know who Comrade Duck is, he is the one who operated S-21, the most ruthless concentration camp that the Khmer Rouge operated. The born-again serial believer once said, any theory or ideology which mentions love for the people in a class-based concept is definitely driving us into endless tragedy and misery. So, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. And it's basically what we're seeing today, because Marxists, that's what they do. They end up going after each other anyways, and during that period of time, I understand it, this was during the Vietnamese War. Everything was fucking a shitstorm. Okay, I'm not blaming anybody. This is just everybody was involved, including the United States of America, China, and so forth. And so what happened in Cambodia was a fucking tragedy. But the thing is just people like Caldwell is a good example of being a useful idiot. And this is what I'm really an advocate for. Like, know exactly what you're fighting for, or your side's gonna fucking execute you. This happened under Stalin as well. He removed all his top officials. They got executed if you dared to question him. This happened in North Korea when Kim Jong-un, go and killed their uncles and, fellow comrades and stuff like that. The Marxists, they talk about being compassion. They talk about kindness, togetherness, all this good stuff, only for them to be executed in the process. And I never really understood that. I mean, it's like what they preach, they don't necessarily, I hate to say it, but it's kind of cliche. They don't practice what they preach. And so, it's just people that just believe and go for it. And I'm very open. And of course, you guys know that, my family were all Khmer Rouge. They're all Khmer Kaham. And every time, like, before when I was little, I would hear when I was little, I didn't really hear my mom and dad talk about it that much, because I think it's because they were in a new country and they were in a different culture, so they didn't really talk about it. They were trying to assimilate into the culture, to the American culture. So, but as I got older and my mom started to talk about it a little bit more and more, they thought that, this is the people that's going to be a fight for me, that's going to fight for me. And you see this with Black Lives Matter and stuff like that. If you look at the May riots last year, what has Black Lives Matter done for the black community? Absolutely fucking nothing. The founders of Black Lives Matter, they're buying houses, they're fucking rich, they're not doing anything. They're using, the thing that I don't fucking like about Marxists is that they use people's compassion and feelings and emotion. They that's what they do. And so when they do that, they make people do things. They make people commit atrocities. They make people do things that they didn't really expect them to do. Now, there's I don't know what documentary it was. I think it's called Angkor Awakens. You can find the documentary on Amazon Prime. You can see it on Hulu, about other Khmer Rouge who was talking about the revolution, and they thought they were fighting for the cause. Because if you look at the history of Cambodia, and what happened with the imperialists when the French took over, the Cambodians, the Khmer people were fighting people from their neighbors, the Vietnamese. They were fighting Thais, they were fighting Laos and stuff like that. And so if you look at the history of Cambodia, it was starting to fall apart. So Cambodia asked for help for the French, and then the Chinese came, and then the Japanese came, and then it's just the Indochina War. I'm talking about the first one, and then the second one happened. So, all these people coming into the country and seeing a different Kampuchea than what they saw in Angkor, the Angkor area. Cambodia was a magnificent kingdom. And so that's why near the end of Pol Pot's regime, he started to sound a little bit kind of like a national communist. He sounded like a little bit kind of like a fascist in a way, and he wanted to like remove the blood of the imperialists. You know what I mean? It sounds familiar with the people that are talking about today with, you know, critical race theory, for example, where they want to remove white supremacy, the white system and stuff like that, the white man's thinking, shit like that. And that's what Pol Pot did. He wanted to remove the Vietnamese thinking. When I was little, we were taught the word yun, for example, and tried to remove that from our thinking. The Chinese, for example, which is kind of fucking ironic because the fact that Ling Sari's Chinese, by the way, Pol Pot has Chinese blood. All the Cambodians that you see, my great grandmother, for example, has Chinese blood in her. So, and he wanted to remove that. And so it sounds a little bit kind of, he turned into kind of Hitler near the end. Okay. So it's unfortunate that I'm not saying to make fun of him. I mean, may he rest in peace. But sorry, Malcolm, you are just a typical useful fucking idiot. Okay, that the superiors will use against you. So I really want to reread this article, but it's pretty long. But he does break everything down in detail about what happened that night and why Caldwell was executed. So yeah, see, look, so it goes in detail about his life and stuff like that. Caldwell, I'm talking about Caldwell. So the Guardian actually did a really good job in breaking down what happened that night. So you guys can check that out as well. An article by, and it's really funny too, because the Guardian is Marxist trash too. You know, well, I wouldn't say Marxist trash. I would say like they're like the British left-leaning garbage that you see today. And look, I'm not against being a nice person. I'm not against being compassionate. I'm not being open your heart and stuff like that. But for some odd reason, every time that I hear somebody talk about that, and you know, even Comrade Dutch, for example, said it perfectly. And that guy was a fucking monster. Okay, guys? That guy was really disgusting what he did to the Cambodian people. In S21, they killed men, women, children, babies. I mean, taking little babies and smashing them up the Buddha tree. I think it's a Buddha tree. I don't know what tree it was. But the dude was a fucking monster. But he found Christianity, by the way. And he's born again Christian, and a lot of and I know that this is going off topic a little bit, but the Khmer Rouge, majority of the top officials, they were born again Christians or something, and not born again Christians, they were Buddhists, but they became Christians to forgive their sin. So but he said it perfectly. Dutch said it perfectly. He said, you know, any theory or ideology which mentions love for the people in class-based concept is definitely driving us into endless tragedy and misery. And this is kind of like a mothery figure thing where, you know, as a mother myself, you know, I really want to take care of my son, but at the same time, that could be poisonous as well because you're spoiling them. Yeah, it's just unfortunate that they don't really think that they can go too far. So anyways, I really hope you guys enjoyed this little kind of historic information about a useful idiot. And yeah, you know, really think about what you're supporting. Question. If you can't question the ideology of your superiors, then you're probably living under a dictatorship. No, look, I totally respect hierarchy. I totally get that. But in a healthy hierarchical structure, competent leaders, they respect the opinions of their subordinates. Okay, so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure that you guys check out the Far Out Wisdom podcast. That's my podcast. It's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Amazon Music, Pandora. Just pretty much search the Far Out Wisdom podcast. You can check the website at faroutwisdom.podbean.com. You can go to my pod page, faroutwisdom.pod page. And yeah, just hit subscribe, like, share if you guys want to get a little bit more Cambodian history, especially in my channel, because I'm going to talk a lot about the Khmer Rouge. You do not see that as much as YouTube. Well, you do, but most of the ones talking about the Khmer Rouge itself is fucking Marxists themselves. But anyways, yeah, hit like, subscribe, and as always, guys, stay far out and enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.